Hello, my name is Karim Kari. I'm a first year medical student, and with me is.
I'm Varun Janji. I'm also a first year medical student.
Okay. And today we will be presenting about the adherence to reporting guidelines and clinical trial registration in psychiatry and mental health journals. Reporting guidelines and study registration regulations have been adopted by many journals and are very important in making sure that these studies are very tightly regulated and are easy to be repeated, and are important because a lot of these studies, clinics and hospitals, they also learn from these studies and they implement in their own practice. So it's important for these journals to implement these reporting guidelines. So it is imperative for journals to implement these reporting guidelines and study registration recommendations or requirements for authors to follow when publishing a study in order to reduce bias in advanced research methods. It is unclear how well psychiatry and mental health journals adopt these reporting guidelines and clinical trial registration policies. And so the purpose of this systematic review was to investigate how these journals adhere to these reporting guidelines and study registration policies. And so the way how we implemented this study is that we conducted a systematic review of the top 100 psychiatric medical journals according to the 2021 Scopus SciScore tool. And of those top 100, we just selected the top 100, and we went to the inclusion screen, and we assessed the instruction of authors of each journal in a masked duplicate fashion, and we evaluated whether the journals required, recommended, or mentioned any reporting guidelines outlined by the Equator Network. And from these instructions for authors, we obtained statements regarding clinical trial registrations, and we also attempted to reduce the risk of bias by confirming article types that were accepted by each journal by contacting the editorial team to make sure that if there was a study type that they did not accept, then we would at least confirm it with them so that we can not count it against them. And so from our studies, we found these following results.
We found that 30% of the journals mentioned the Equator Network, and 55% of the journals mentioned the International Committee of Medical Journal Editors, or ICMJE, as well as 62% of the journals either recommended or required clinical trial registration. The most referenced reporting guidelines were Consort and Prisma at 56 and 48% respectively. And the least mentioned guidelines were Moose and QWOROM with less than 10%. So based on our results, our conclusion is that the majority of the top 100 psychiatry and mental health journals do not mention the Equator Network or mention reporting guidelines. And so our recommendation is that the editors of these journals emphasize these reporting guidelines and study registration in their instructions for authors pages.